Hi everybody, my name is Chris Pies with PCA Sim Racing, and I am going to guide you through a track walk of Barber Motorsports Park. If you're watching this, you're at Porsche Parade, and I welcome you to this week's festivities located here in Birmingham, Alabama, with the highlight being around Barber Motorsports Park. We should have lots of simulators set up for PCA members to try out. So if you're interested, jump in, talk to one of the representatives, and get out and turn a lap. In order to help you go navigate Barber, I'm going to walk us through what it's like to drive a lap around here in the 911 GT3R, the 992 version. Barber is a track that is famous for being extremely technical. There's not a lot of straightaways. It originally was set up and built for Barber's love of motorcycles, and it shows that. So you have nice flowing turns, lefts, rights, very, very tame curbs that you can use a lot of when setting a lap time or driving a car around here. But overall, it's something very unique to the United States, and it's a wonderful, wonderful track to be at, as you can, I'm sure, see with the facilities provided and available to us. If you get a chance, make sure you go check out the museum. It's absolutely one of the best in the country. And with that, we're going to jump out on track and start taking a look at the lap time. So here we are in the GT3R at Barber. So we are using the 911 GT3R, which is the race car version of the 911 we all know and love, the 992. This is the car that is commonly campaigned in racing series such as IMSA and the GTD class, as well as in WEC as the GT3 class as well. It is basically the de facto standard for sports car racing when you get outside of prototypes. So it's a phenomenal car. It's got a lot of characteristics and a lot of character in general to it. But we're going to try to see if we can maximize and get as much out of this car as we can here at Barber. So if we go to the fast lap that we did, or that I did a little bit earlier, we'll go ahead and rewind it, and we'll take it lap by lap to get a really good indication of exactly how best to take Barber. So coming down the front straight at Barber, you'll notice it's one of the few straightaways on the track. It's right in front of the pit lane over on the left. The starter stand is right up here in front of you, and the lap starts just before the floorboard for the braking zone and down into turn one. Coming down into turn one, what we're looking for is, obviously you can see that it's a completely blind turn. We can't see the apex on the way down into it. So what we need to do is we need to have a little bit of faith that our turn-in point is going to put us where we need to be for apex. Braking zone on a hot lap will be somewhere around the two board, right around here that I'm showing. It's going to be a pretty heavy brake pedal. When I say brake pedals, I'm going to refer it to a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being emergency braking full stop and 1 being just pressing the pedal enough for the brake lights to come on. Coming into this turn, it's going to be pretty much an 8 or a 9 pedal when we first hit it, and then we're going to start trailing off and transitioning to a lesser pedal as we start our turn-in. Our turn-in point is going to be just at about the one board in front of us. So as we're moving forward, we'll start turning the wheel at 1, and we'll start our dive down into turn 1, looking for the apex as we crest the hill. As you can see, we can see a lot of the track at around apex, but we can't see a whole lot of it before apex. So down here at apex, there's a lot of track, which means there's a lot of camber that is assisting us, but it doesn't happen until after the apex point. So turn in is going to be very understeering. The car is not going to feel like it's going to want to turn. And so we have to make sure that we are trusting and have a good line going on the entry into here, because when we get down to the apex point and just after, the car will grip up with that extra camber as the track kind of bottoms out and creates a bowl. Our goal on the way down into turn 1 is to get our left side tires as close to this gray curbing as we can, right at the point where you can first see it touching the grass. That little point between the grass, the gray, and the track surface is the point we want to get our left side tires to basically cross over. We want to try avoid hitting the curb, because it can unsettle the car on the way through, but as close as we can get to that without touching it usually results in the best lap time. So as you can see here, this is my apex point. I'm pretty darn close to that initial point that we were trying to achieve. As we are going down into turn 1 and reaching the apex point, down here over in the bottom left, you can see my telemetry. I'm starting to feed on the throttle with the goal of being on full throttle as close to apex as possible to get a good run coming out of the corner. So as you can see right around here, I reach full throttle just after the apex point. I let the track catch me on the back end and use that camber to my advantage to start opening the wheel and accelerating coming out of the corner. If we do it right, we'll end up over on track right on the exit, and we immediately have to transition to a right-hander through turn 2 and 3, which is also known as the carousel here at Barber. What is interesting about the carousel is it is a you can treat it like one of two things. You can treat it as a single apex, late apex corner, or you can double apex it. I tend to like a double apex approach to this, with the first apex being extremely early in the carousel and then a later apex being at the curbing at the bottom of the hill. Another feature of the carousel is it's all downhill, meaning that the further you get out in the corner, the further you start pushing away from the inside of the track, the less and less grip you have. The car really wants to understeer, so we have to really focus on getting the car slow and kind of coast and maintain our momentum around the corner, or else we'll push out too wide if we try to accelerate at all. So patience is the key for the carousel, with ultimately the goal being a very late apex. So this is what it looks like. Coming down in, this is the first apex I like to take, which is really early. There's not any one particular point. Obviously, it's all grass. But one thing you can maybe look at is the flag stand that's in front of us in this green light pole. If we're apexing with the front of the car pointing that's probably a good indication of that first apex point. You'll notice that my telemetry, I'm already started to brake coming up over the rise of the hill, and you can actually see how significant the downhill is throughout the entire carousel. All this downhill does, and the lack of camber means that, like I said, is the car is going to want to push out and scrub out to the outside of the track. We're going to let the car kind of run a little bit while we're essentially letting the car coast through the first part between turns 2 and 3. The car is going to kind of move out to about maybe 1/3 track, so 1/3 across the surface of the track. And then once we get out to about 1/3, the car is going to start to come back for that late apex. So another way to think of it is we're diamonding early, the car is going to try to venture out, and then we're going to bring it back and diamond it and come back and hit that second apex really late. Throughout the turn, we're looking for the curbing to meet the final apex, which is right here, this gray curbing. And our goal is to angle the car on that trajectory with our steering angle that as it starts to lose speed, the radius of our turn gets tighter, and then we've rotated the car enough to where we can start accelerating as the car is going through the final part of the corner. If we do it correctly and we make our apex as close to the curb as we can be on full throttle on the way through the final part of the corner with our eyes up looking to track out, which is going to be the curbing on the outside of the track. Much like turn 1, the apex point and just after the apex point has a lot of grip due to the camber that is assisting you. We can see a lot of the track visually right now, which means camber is helping us. So as we come through this final part of the carousel, the track is really gripping up and allowing us to attack it with accelerating. You can see I'm already at full acceleration at this point before apex. We open our hands as we add more and more speed to the car to allow the car to grip up, and we track out all the way to the curbing. The next turn up turn 4 up the hill is a bit of a gut check. I'm going to transition to the cockpit of the car so we can actually see what it looks like from the inside. The big thing about this particular corner is it's completely blind. So we're going up the hill, going into turn 4. The nice thing about the GT3R and most cars around Barber is it's absolutely flat. You can take it without lifting off the gas. But the only way you can do it effectively is have a good line through here. So what we're doing is we're keeping our eyes up on the horizon, and we're looking for a specific object on the horizon as we start our ascent up the hill. We are looking for the scoring tower and the scoring pylon, which is right there in front of us, this big tower. The goal is as we come through this corner, when we see that scoring pylon, we're going to try to draw a straight line from the curbing that we can just see here all the way to that pylon. And we want to apex right at the curbing. Don't go over the curbing, but just kiss it with the right side tires, but keep the steering and the car straight pointed at that pylon. If you do it correctly, as you crest the hill, your hands should be almost completely straight. You'll be aimed right at the pylon. The car will get light as it crests the hill, but you won't have much steering input, if any at all, in the car. So it'll go up and over that hill, no problems and without drama. Where people tend to get in trouble coming up over this hill is they're not looking for that pylon and their car is angled out over to the left somewhere. And then when they crest the hill, they think, oh no, I need to have more steering angle. They add steering angle right as the car gets light, and there's no grip in the car, and that can cause a spin. So look for the pylon, drive to the pylon as you crest the hill, and you should be in good shape coming over. As we go through turn 4, we're going to bring the car slowly over and enter into the braking zone for turn 5 or Charlotte's Web. Much like turn 1, it's completely blind until you get to the top of the hill on the way down. So what we need to do is we need to have a really good disciplined braking marker that we can hit every single time. Thankfully, we've got some really nice boards that we can use for braking markers. In this particular car, I like to brake just before the 2 board, and it's going to be basically a 10 pedal, 9 or 10 pedal on initial application. The goal through Charlotte's Web is, again, a double apex corner like the carousel with an early apex here at the very beginning of the corner, and then a super late apex around the corner in second gear. So as we come down into the corner, we're braking in a straight line because the car is more effective at braking when you don't have any steering input. And then as we start to turn in, we're going to start lifting off the brake pedal. So as you can see here, I'm already at 50% right when I start my turn in. So I'm just doing a little bit of trail braking. Just as an example, when I first hit this brake pedal, I'm at pretty much 85%. So I'm right on the edge of ABS, braking and doing slowing the car down as much as possible to the brakes. Do a little bit of trail braking on the entry into here and try to hit that first apex, which is right here. I missed it a little bit, but it's not the end of the world because ultimately the biggest goal is to hit a super late apex on the back end of the corner. Entry into this corner is straight downhill. There is no camber to speak of. In fact, the track is already off camber throughout the entire corner, meaning that unless you get the car slowed down drastically, it's very difficult to get down to the curbing. So it always feels like you're overslowing the car coming through Charlotte's Web, but that's by design with the track and the lack of camber. We keep the steering angle in the car and even add some if necessary. And as we get the car rotated about midway through the track and we realize that we're going to hit the second apex, we can start adding throttle and drive through the corner. Your second apex is going to be somewhere around this area. As we go to throttle, we need to start opening our hands because we're coming from a very slow speed, and it's very easy to overwhelm the tires and enter traction control. As we open our hands, we extend the track out point and use as much as we can. We don't need to go all the way out to the right, but we also don't need to pinch the corner off and keep it over to the left. So however you took the exit of the corner, let the car dictate where it wants to go to accept full throttle. When I come through this corner on any given race, sometimes I end up, about 1/3 track left. Sometimes I drive it all the way out to the right. It just depends on how the car ended up getting through the second half of Charlotte's Web. Assuming we got through there correctly, we go to a little short straightaway, a little short shoot down to the museum set of turns, which is very unique for Barber. Again, this particular scan of the track, we don't have the infamous bridge that is up over the top of the track here with the, if you watched IndyCar a few weeks ago or about a month ago, there's a mannequin that sits or hangs underneath the bridge. It fell down during the race. They put it back up. So if you go out and look at the grounds and go to the museum, make sure you look for the hanging mannequin that's underneath the bridge up here. But unfortunately in iRacing, the track was scanned before the bridge was actually built. Coming into the braking zone, we're looking for the 2-board. This is a tricky corner, museum. The goal for museum is to get the car slowed enough to take this first right-hander, get off the brakes during the middle of the turn to maintain our momentum, and then get on the brakes once more for the little mini corkscrew down into museum proper. This is what it looks like. So braking at the 2-board, or just after the 2-board, in fact, I broke closer to the 1-board. We're going to turn in while a little bit of braking. And then as you can see here, as I'm turning in and about to hit this curb, I'm almost completely off the brakes. Downshift to second gear at this point, and I'm back on the brakes more between the two curbings. So between that right-hand curbing and this left-hand curbing, I'm back on the brakes. So it's brake, turn in, lift, go over the curb, brake again in a straight line, downshift, and then get off the brakes as I go across this second curb on the left. Use all the curbing. In fact, you can get your left side tires on the grass just fine, and it still be a perfect valid lap. Brake again once we cross that curbing to get our final slowdown for this final corner, and then turn in early and try to keep the car as tight as we can to the inside curbing. As we come down the hill, as you can see here, as we come down the hill, we're going to start feeding on power as the car rotates through here in second gear. Once we commit to full throttle, we will start opening our hands so the car is able to accept that full throttle through the rear tires, and we get a good squirt coming out of there. So if I go back to what it looked like before, let's take a look at that again. This is a tricky corner. So as we come in again, we're going to brake at about the one board, or just before the one board. So right here, as you can see, boom, brake to about maybe a 7 pedal, turn in, off the brakes right here as we start to crest over the first curbing, land on the back end, brake again, get a downshift in down to second gear, a little bit off the brakes, and then back on the brakes hard after we get over the curbing down into the final turn. Turn in a little bit early, try to keep it close to the curbing, and then start adding throttle on the way out to get a good run coming out of Museum. It's a very technical and very tricky set of corners, and it's extremely unique to Barber. There's not really another corner like it. Coming up to the chicane, which is the fast chicane on the back straight. The goal here is we're going to be in 5th gear coming through here. We want to maintain as much speed as we can because there is another little mini straightaway on the back side of this corner. So the goal is just to get through here as quick as possible while maintaining our momentum. So 5th gear, we're going to do is we're going to kiss the curbing on the left, lift off the throttle while we transition from left to right. It's not a full lift, it's just a crack of the throttle. And then boom, back on the throttle when we get our car pointed at the back half of the right-hand curbing. If we do it right and when we go back to throttle, the car will end up all the way over here on track left, right next to the curbing. In terms of miles an hour, which is probably a good way to look at this to see if your speed or you're carrying enough speed through here. My entry speed on the way in looks like it's about 121, 122. At the apex of the first left-hander, I'm at 125. And then 121 was the slowest I saw through the next right-hander. So my min speed through the corner was 121. Still screaming. Again, we want to maintain as much speed as we possibly can. Laps are kind of won and lost through that chicane. Now we come up to the back half of the track with another very unique corner for Barber, affectionately called tunnel because there's a tunnel that runs underneath it. Again, really good braking markers over here on the right that we can use. It's a common theme at Barber. We're going to brake just before the one board with a turn in just after the one board. Our goal here is a relatively light brake, so maybe a 4 or 5 pedal, just to get the nose set for turn in so we can get a good turn in. And then as we turn in and go down this hill, we're going to get off the brakes and kind of let the momentum of the car go down. The reason we're not using any pedals on the way through here is because we've got the car fully loaded on the right side. We don't want to upset the balance more than we already have. As we go down into the left-hander, we'll brake when we get to a straight line between the two corners and before we transition over to the right. Ideally, we're going to be left of mid-track for the right-hander up the hill, but this is where we get our braking done. And as we turn to the right, we maintain a little bit of trail braking so we can set the nose and get a good turn in. We're going to be down to 3rd gear through here, and we're going to use all of this curb on the right. The goal is to exit the curb, so basically apex this curb where the curb and the grass meet on the back end. So we're going to use all the curbing, and then boom, right there, as close as we can get the right side of the tires to the grass where it meets the curbing and the track surface at that little point. is better because it sets up for a good angle coming up over the hill. The hill is completely blind, and we need to be aware of that, so we need to make sure we're getting the car turned as much as possible. We can use some trees up on the horizon from the cockpit to be able to get a good idea if we're going to make it or not through this corner. So what I like to do is there's a little bit of a gap in the trees right here, a little bit of a U, but basically I want my front of my car pointed at this top area of tree right here. That tells me that if I'm cresting the hill with my front of my car pointed at or to the right of this tall bit of tree, I'm going to be safe on the back end. So as we go over the crest of the hill, if I'm angled in the right angle on the way up and over, I will be in a perfect spot on track out for the track out on the left side of the track. As you crest that hill right there, the car will get light, and you may have to add a little bit of opposite steer to make sure you're going to catch any slides that may happen. You can't relax though, because as soon as you go over the crest of that hill, you've got another right-hander that is very fast. In this particular car, we've got to lift a little bit to make sure that we keep the car nice and tidy through here. It is easy to overpower the turn and understeer out too far. We want to take our right side tires and get it as close to the grass as possible on a traditional apex, which is right here. If we do it correctly and we get off, notice I'm not on any pedals throughout this entire phase. And the reason is because we're going to have to brake pretty soon for the penultimate corner right here on the right. This is probably the most difficult corner on the track, at least from a braking perspective, because there is no clean brake marker. There's no boards on the side of the track. It's just grass. So it's kind of a feel of when you should brake through here. I like to use from the cockpit, I like to see the sight picture, and I like to see the entry into pit lane. So there's the pit entry sign right here where my mouse cursor is. And then there's also a white wall over here that dictates pit lane. So I start to get on the brakes as I start to see that wall. So boom, there I can start to see the wall. I can start seeing the pit sign. I start adding some brake while keeping the steering angle in the car. The steering angle in the car is important because we don't want to start opening our hands too early and run too wide through here, because that's just wasted distance that we're traveling around the track. We want to keep the car at mid-track at the furthest if possible, and start transitioning as we get on the brakes and start slowing the car down, start bringing the car over to the right. And the reason is this right-hander is a complete throwaway corner. We want to get down to it early, and we want to ride the curb and keep it as tight as possible, because the only corner that matters is this corner right here, which leads on to the longest straightaway. So if we can get to the final corner at track right here, we're in third gear, a little bit of a lift on the way in, and then transitioning to throttle on the way through. We have a lot of camber at the apex. We want the bowl to catch us, much like the exit of turn one, and get a good run where we accelerate through the corner onto the straightaway to complete our hot lap. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down to cockpit level, and I'm going to show it what it looks like without starting and stopping and with some noise. So here we go. So we're going to brake at the 2 board, turn in up 1, off the brakes, 4th gear through there, brake, downshift to 3rd gear, down to 2nd, laid apex where the curbing meets the track, let the car track all the way out. Look for the pylon in the sky, straight hands, nice and easy. We're going to brake just before the 2 board, all the way down to 2nd gear, and we're going to go all the way, we can go down to 1st gear, all the way a laid apex, opening our hands as we accelerate through the corner. Coming up to the entry into the museum, we're going to brake just before the 1 board. We're going to brake, lift off the brake, downshift, brake, and then back on throttle. We're going to move the car all the way to the right to prepare for the chicane. We're going to be in 5th gear, just a little bit of a half lift, and then back on throttle, let the car track out. We're going to brake at the 1 board, turn in, off all pedals, brake, turn in, 3rd gear, laid apex. Catch the slide on the way out, off the throttle, apex at the grass, start braking. We can see the pit entry wall, nice and tight, 2nd gear. Short shift up to 3rd, laid apex, on the throttle early, and get a good run home. And that is a lap at Barber. Now, for my lap that I did, I just did a 21.5. The weather that I am in is 65 degrees. The track temp is 67, so it's pretty cold, which means a lot of grip on the track. If you can't get down to that time, don't worry. I know this track pretty well. I've raced here in real life. And also I have a lot of familiarity in this particular car in the sim. So, best of luck when you go out there and try to do some hot laps. Don't get discouraged if the lap is difficult or it's taking some time to get used to it. Like I said, Barber is an incredibly technical track. It's built for motorcycles at the end of the day, but it is fun and rewarding when you get it right. If you are interested in sim racing and you want to do more of this, you get excited by the demos we've got, and your thought is, how do I get involved? Be sure to ask some of the representatives here at Porsche Parade about PCA sim racing. We've got probably over 1,000 PCA members at this point who are registered with the league. We put on races of all kinds. So we have series races, we've got team races, we have endurance races. If there is racing in a Porsche in iRacing, we do it. It's a great group of folks. We even have education and EDE. I put classrooms on myself for the PCA Sim Racing series, and it's just a good time with a lot of like-minded individuals who enjoy sports cars, enjoy Porsches, and enjoy racing. So be sure to come on out. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to send me an email or reach out to me. My name is Chris Pies. My email is pies.chris@gmail.com, PAIZ.CHRIS@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And with that, good luck. Try to go beat that time of a 21.5 and enjoy Porsche Parade. I wish I could be there myself. Thank you so much. See you soon.